thank you for watching my channel today. My name's Sarah and my channel is called Your True Shelf, and today is a little bit of a kind of a mishmash. I'm doing my wrap up for December and I'm just going to talk a little bit about my goals for 2024. So you might have noticed I'm sitting in a different position to normal because I normally film over there and it's in a corner and it's getting dark-ish outside, so I'm filming slightly in a different position in the same room just because I've got a window right opposite me, and so you can see a different bookcase and a very lovely radiator. So that's my different position today. So it feels like a long time ago since I read the books in the beginning of December, I guess because it was a long time ago. And I'm just going to do kind of a brief wrap up of December. The theme for December was just to go for easy stuff and pick whatever I fancied for the second half of December at least. So the first book I read I've already discussed in a previous video, so I'm not going to discuss it again, but the first book that I read of December was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which was our book club pick and which I really enjoyed. I did talk about that when I did like a current reads video towards the end of last year, so I'm not going to re-wrap that one up, but that one was a 4.5 star for me. I really enjoyed it. The second book that I finished in December was Villette by Charlotte Bronte. This was a buddy read and this book was fine. There were parts of this book that I really loved, parts of it which I found quite boring. Villette is basically about a woman called Lucy Snow who is she starts off living with a family who are not her own family. We then find out that we don't know exactly what, but there's been very difficult circumstances at home and she's kind of alone in the world. And she goes off aged, I think 18, to France, to this little town called Villette, where she gets a job as a teacher at an all-girls school. It's basically about her life at the school, about her trying to build relationships and about the characters that she lives with, works with, the girls at the school, and another infuriating teacher called Monsieur Paul, who is a very difficult person. And I don't think that, this might be an unpopular opinion, I don't really know that Charlotte Bronte is for me because I felt kind of the same with Jane Eyre. There were parts of Jane Eyre which I really enjoyed and parts which I found quite slow and boring. And I think this, for me, was sort of similar. I think I like Jane Eyre better than Villette, but I feel that Charlotte Bronte's writing, whilst I can completely respect the talent that she has, I don't feel that her work is really for me. And I don't think I'll probably read any more of her books, but I'd be interested to try her sister's works because I might find that I gel better with one of them. But I think I gave this one 3.5 stars. 3.5 stars I gave Villette. So after that, I wanted something that was frivolous and light and more fun. And so I chose Walking on Sunshine by Giovanna Fletcher. I'd put this on my book trolley for my sort of pile of possibilities for winter, mainly because of this wintry scene, which really doesn't play any relevance to the book. But it's not set in winter at all. The premise of this is about 3 female friends, one of whom has died of breast cancer before the book starts. A second is a mum with very young children who's finding life very difficult because having small children is very difficult. And the third is a woman who is, she's had lots of relationships that didn't really work out and she's now got engaged and she's not 100% sure if that's what she really wants. So we're following the 3 friends and also the widower husband of the one who died of breast cancer. We're finding out about, we've got alternate viewpoints in the chapters. We're finding out more about their lives, and they basically they find a note, or they get given a note from their friend who died, telling them to plan a trip together to kind of have some fun together and make some good memories and stuff. And so this trip, they go trekking in Peru for the trip, and it basically makes them all reevaluate what's going on in their lives and have some space away from them to sort of understand what their feelings are on different topics. And Giovanna Fletcher's style, she will cover more serious issues, but she still keeps them quite light, and there's still funny bits and things like that, and you know it's probably going to have a nice ending. So I just wanted something like that. I did enjoy this book, and I think I gave it 4 stars. Let me just have a little look again. See, it's been a while. Yeah, I gave it 4 stars, and I think now in retrospect it would probably be a 3.5, but it was just exactly the kind of thing that I needed to have something to have fun with. Then I did my reread for Remember December, which was a readathon which was going on in the month of December. There were prompts to reread lots of books in December, but I know it's fine to basically use the rules however you wish, and so I decided I was going to re-listen to an audiobook. I had fun choosing, going back through my old catalogue of audiobooks and picking one, and I was really happy with my choice. I chose Writers and Lovers by Lily King, and I still absolutely adored this book. I loved it so much the first time round, and I adored it again this time round. It would definitely have been on my top books of the year like it was last time, if it wasn't for the fact that I wasn't counting rereads in that list. So we're following Casey Peabody, who is a woman in her, I think, late 20s. She's working as a waitress in a high-end restaurant, and she is also trying to write her first novel. She wants to be a writer. Her mum died quite suddenly, about a few months before the start of the book, and it's very much about Casey's grief and the anxiety she feels after her mum has died, as well as the stress of having huge student debts, and all of her wages pretty much are going on to her paying off her student debt. So she's really hard up, and she's trying to make time to write as well. And this is a literary fiction book, but there's also love stories in the book, but it's not like a contemporary women's fiction type book. I would class it as literary fiction. There's one guy called Silas. He's also a writer. He's about the same age as Casey, but he seems a little bit flaky, but she has really good chemistry with him. And there's another guy called Oscar, who is also a writer, but he's a successful writer. He's about 15 or so years older than Casey, and he's got 2 boys. He's a widower, and she's sort of trying to work out what she wants in terms of the relationships, as well as trying to just get her life together again and write, work, try and keep afloat, plus deal with the grief of her mum. And I loved the narrator in this book. She has such a gorgeous voice, and I think when you get a good narrator, that really adds a little extra sparkle to a book. So I would, if you haven't read Writers and Lovers, I would massively recommend it. It's a fantastic book. It's not that long. I think it's about 8 hours on audio, something like that, but absolutely loved it. And thank you, Roz, for doing Remember December so that I could reread that book. The next book that I chose was again something where I wanted to make progress in a series, have something quite light and easy and fun. It turned out to be like a bit not as good as I was hoping. So I picked After We Collided by Anna Todd, which is the second book in the After series. There are five. They're over there. There were 5 books in the series. I got them as a box set. So they're all available as films on Netflix, and I watched the first film ages ago, really liked it, and then I got the ebook of the first After book, really enjoyed that, got the box set of all of them, and then they have taken a turn for the worse, definitely. I'm not sure that I'm going to carry on with this series now. So I've seen the first 2 films. I haven't seen any other films, but I would say the films are definitely less dark than the books. So we are following Hardin, who is a college age in America. He's British, but he's gone to America to study. And Tessa, who is about a year younger than him, has always been like a really kind of good student, nice person, had her same boyfriend through school. And then this is in book 1, she meets Hardin. Hardin's like the bad boy. She's really tempted by Hardin. She leaves her boyfriend for him. And they get into this really kind of screwed up relationship. And it's not as screwed up in the films. But basically, for me, this book is not good girl meets bad boy. This is good girl gets into a domestic abuse relationship. There are like red flags all over this relationship. Obviously, I do, as part of my job, I do safeguarding training, I do domestic abuse training, and I would be strongly telling her that she's in an abusive relationship. I didn't think that was well handled, and I thought that it's actually quite scary that this book is a young adult book. Well, I say young adult, it's very graphic, so I would say actually it's going to be new adult. Is that the right word? Like very late teens. It wouldn't be suitable for like 12-year-olds to read this book, no way. But I wouldn't want young people thinking that this is either a attractive relationship or a normal relationship, because there were loads of books which have really positive relationship models in it, and I really think that young people reading this kind of scares me a little bit, because so there were things like, so Hardin will tell her like, I don't want you to talk to that person, I'm going to drop you off and pick you up, not in like a nice way, in like a controlling way, so I know like where you are and who you're with, and I don't like you wearing that thing, and I don't want you to see your family anymore, and all of these kind of real big red flags. And Tessa gives like these, oh, you can't tell me what to wear, but okay, it's going to mean that we don't have a fight if I do what you say, so I'm just going to do it for an easy life. Well, no, that's not okay. So I found that although there are parts of the book where I got engaged with the story, I am not happy with the relationship dynamics at all in this book, and the fact that they're not really even being criticised. There's definitely points where they're like, oh, I probably shouldn't give him another chance, and you know, her best friend is like, I don't think that you guys are good together, but there's never a strong argument for saying, actually, this is not how a relationship should work, and this is not positive, and this needs to stop. It just doesn't happen. And so I think I'm going to have to DNF this series, because for all the above reasons, I don't want to read about an abusive relationship in this, and glamorizing an abusive relationship. No. After that, again, going along my light theme, I listened to the final part in the Dash and Lily series. So I again saw this a few years ago on Netflix. There was Dash and Lily, which is the first book in a trilogy. They're all set around Christmas, and so it's kind of become my little tradition that this year and the 2 years previously I listened to the audiobook from the library of each of the Dash and Lily books at Christmas, and this is the third one. They're kind of cute college age romances. They're really like wholesome and innocent. They're not anything like the after romances, and it's just following, so like Dash has gone to university in England this time, and Lily is trying to figure out if she wants to go to university. She's still in America. They're a couple. It's just about working out the dynamics of a long distance relationship. It does cover anxiety and mental well-being in this book, and I thought it was done quite well. They're wildly unrealistic. The depiction of British people and British speech and everything was really ridiculous. But they're just like cute, uplifting books that I don't have loads to say about. I think my advice would be watch Dash and Lily on Netflix, the first series. And if you like it, then read the trilogy. Because it's just like cute, easy romance set at Christmas. Wouldn't read it any other time of year. I've done the trilogy now, but they've been kind of sweet and enjoyable. And then the final book that I started reading this in November and kept putting it down. And I just wanted to finish it before the end of the year, so that it was not something I carried over. This is a non-fiction book. This is talking about Jane Austen in Baghdad by B. Rowlatt and May Witwit. So B is a journalist for the BBC World Service, and she has 3 little children, and May is a woman who is Iraqi, who is living in Baghdad, and she is a university teacher, lecturer, professor. And B interviews her for her work in the World Service, and then they basically start this correspondence, and it's trying to, so it's set in the time when, around the time when Saddam Hussein was taken from power, and it's purely epistolary, so it's just emails between May and B. There's no stepping outside of the emails at all. Over their couple of years of friendship, trying to get May out of Iraq because they're the people who are kind of gained control in Iraq are assassinating university lecturers because they don't want people to be educated and have knowledge which could empower them, and so they're targeting lecturers. And I found it really interesting to read about May's life, and actually for her, she found it preferable to have Saddam Hussein in power because he kept all of the tribal kind of leaders in check, and as soon as he was removed, all hell broke loose, and it was actually for her a lot worse, and it was worse again when the Americans came in. And so it was really interesting to hear her perspective rather than the perspective that we're told through news outlets. But B, who is the British woman, like, she was just talking about her normal life and stuff, but it was just really weird to have her emails about her holidays and the PTA meetings that she'd been to and what her kids were doing. I didn't feel that there was enough acknowledgement of how lucky B was that she was safe and had money and all of the things that she had, and it just felt a bit of a strange contrast to me. I thought this book was interesting, but I wasn't kind of compelled to keep picking it up, and so I am glad that I read it, but it wasn't one of my favourites. I gave it 3 stars in the end. So that was all the books that I read in December. I just thought I'd go through a few little goals that I have. I just got my bullet journal on my lap. My goals are quite simple this year because my main goal, as everyone always says, is to read spontaneously and to read from my own shelves. I know everyone says that every year, but last year I overcommitted to things. I had too much pressure at times of what I had to read by what date, and it took the pleasure out of it. And I know there's bigger problems going on in the world than what I have to read. I understand that, and I'm not trying to make it out that this is a big life dilemma, but I just wanted to decrease the pressure this year. And so last year I had like a spread where I had like read 3 Japanese books, read 12 Kindle books, read 3 really old books from my TBR, and I had that kind of thing, but I didn't feel it actually influenced my reading at all. I just was like, I incidentally got rid of goals rather than doing them on purpose, so I scrapped that this year. And I made this little spread, that's just my January cover page, but I made this little spread here, which is the goals that I want to do. So one of the things is TBR spin. This is, I've mentioned this before, this is a challenge done by Jill of Bookbilly and Sarah of Freshly Read Books, where you picked a stack of 12 books at the beginning of the year, and I have a spread for that too, because I have a spread for everything. That is my TBR spin spread. So this is the 12 books I'm starting with. Then every month there's a spin on like a wheel for a prompt, and if you don't have a book that meets that prompt, you have to swap out one of these books, swap in one that does meet the prompt. So for instance, the first spin was a book by a Canadian author. I didn't have one of those, so I swapped out Leave the World Behind by Ruman Alarm, and I read Washington Black by Essie Adugian instead. So that's how that works. I always think it looks really fun, and I thought it was quite a simple goal, just 1 book a month. I then have decreased library. So I borrowed so many books from the library last year that I didn't read as many from my own shelf as I want to. I am sticking with the library for my book club books because I don't necessarily want to buy them, but I am trying to just use the library for the kids' books and also for book club. I've got using Audible for new releases. So if there's a new release that comes out that I'm really interested in, I will probably use that as my credit, because then not only is it not costing me the price of a hardback, but if I don't really like it, I can always return it. So I wanted to try and use Audible for those newer titles. I want to try and read one Kindle book every month, because I did do that last year, and it's quite nice because you often forget what books you've got on your Kindle because they're not looking at you around you. They're obviously on my device, which I only see when I open it. Prizes, I've got shortlist only, so I can get really sucked into the hype around especially the Women's Prize and the Booker Prize. And if a book goes from the long list to the short list, I often then forget all about it completely. And so I obviously wasn't that interested in reading it anyway. So I don't want to just go, I'm going to read the entire long list if I'm not really interested in the book. I'd rather stick to the shortlist books, or just pick, if there's a couple that I think, oh yeah, those ones look really good, or I've really wanted to read that anyway. Read those, that's fine. But don't get sucked into trying to do a whole long list. Multiples by one author. So I made a spreadsheet. This was Joe's idea, my friend Joe Smith. I made a spreadsheet because that's what book people do. I have loads of authors who I have got multiple copies of different books by them, but I've either never read them or I've only read like one thing by them before. So for instance, I have loads of books by Helen Dunmore, loads of books by Zadie Smith. I think there's about 18 authors on my list, and I want to try and read a couple at least of the books from some of these authors, because if I then decide, oh, maybe they're not for me, I can unhaul multiple books as well. But also because there must be something that attracted me to buying those books in the first place. Reading from my own shelves, I've already said that. Be selective. That means about my book buying. I'm only going to buy books that I really want to read, not just books that I'm like, oh yeah, that looks quite good, it's only this much in a charity shop, because they're the ones that sit on my shelves for ages. And actually I decreased my book buying by 50% last year, which I think was pretty good. Audible backlist. So I've already started this one. I've got quite a few books on my Audible list that I've had for ages, because I've bought them in the $2.99 deals or the buy one get one free sales and those kind of things. And I actually, my oldest book on my Audible TBR was The Beekeeper of Aleppo by Christy Lefteri, which I actually just listened to. So I'm already off to a good start with that. That was my oldest book. So I started that one just after New Year's, and I've already finished it. So I'm just going to work my way through some of my backlist. And then also do some more rereads. So I really enjoyed doing the reread for Writers and Lovers, and I'm rereading I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings with Joe by Maya Angelou this month. So that will be nice as well, because I can move on with that series. So that's all the goals. They're kind of, I think, achievable. I've already started them. There's no targets. There's no, I have to do this. My book goal for the year was to read one book, and I've already done that. So I set it for the last 3 years at 100 books, and I feel that might negatively impact my reading, because if Storygraph is saying to me, you're 7 books behind, you're 8 books behind, or whatever, I then feel like, oh, I really wanted to read that big 700-page book, but I'm not going to, because then I know that I'll be then 10 books behind and stuff, and that's silly. Like, that's just arbitrary and silly. And so I set it as 1 book. So I've already achieved my numbers goal. I'd be really interested to hear other people's goals. But anyway, let me know if you have any thoughts on the goals or the books that I read, and Happy New Year to everybody. It feels like really late to be saying that, but it was only 6 days ago that it was New Year's Day. But anyhow, I hope you have a lovely week, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye!